Marting Neumann will present us presentation scenarios for integrated and cost-effective refurbishment of a social-owned housing complex. Mr. Neumann, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much and good morning. Let me introduce myself. My name is Hans-Marting Neumann. I work as a Thematic coordinator for urban transformation at AIT, Austrian Institute of Technology. And I will, first of all, introduce our organization briefly and then present a project that we carried out last year in the city of Salzburg. And it is a project about the refurbishment of a social housing district from the 1970s, the kind of district you find everywhere in Europe. And it was for us very insightful because it showed what the barriers for the implementation of low carbon energy systems there are, and how the challenges can be tackled in an integrated way. Well, first of all, AIT, we are the national research organization of Austria with a bit more than 1,000 employees, 1,300 altogether. We work on different fields of applied and integrated research related to energy, but also related to materials, related to biotech, life science, but also related to social science and to urban development. And this is where I'm coming from. So I work for the business unit on sustainable buildings and cities. And our starting point was actually projects related to energy efficiency of buildings and districts. And what I will show you is also related to this. But now we are also getting more and more into other kinds of urban development projects. So we understand ourselves as a urban innovation hub, and we work on 4 topics: responsive cities and regions, which is mainly about stakeholder engagement, about working with city administrations, providing strategic consulting to cities for medium to long-term planning, I would say. Smart spatial planning, which is mainly about simulation tools for urban development, also about simulating spatial processes, spatial configurations of urban systems. We have the energy conscious cities and regions. This is about decarbonization of cities and regions, mainly the energy transition in the urban environment. And finally, we also look at resilient urban systems. That means we work on climate change adaptation and risk management in urban areas and also in regions. We are very active in Europe. Of course, Austria is our home, but we also do a lot of European projects in Horizon 2020 and also recently consulting projects. And we also quite active in, especially in the collaboration with development banks in Asia and in Latin America. Well, this is some of our clients. Of course, we work closely with the city of Vienna, for example, the city of Salzburg, which was the partner for our projects, and we are well connected in the research realm, as well as increasingly in the realm of consulting. So let me now have a look at our project. It was called Smart It Goes, quite a funny acronym, which is related to Smart District Insel-Goethestraße. So this is the district of the area in Southern Goethe is actually based. And of course, the project was motivated by the fact that buildings still consume a lot of our energy. The share of the total energy consumption is really big, and we do know that refurbishing existing areas and existing buildings is actually very important to reach the energy and climate targets that Austria and other nations in Europe have adopted. Let me see. Yeah, exactly. This is the area we were working on. As you can see, typical development from the 1970s. Slabs in the green space. It is completely social housing with around 2,500 inhabitants at the moment. It used to be more, of course, in the past because it was higher population density in the area was built. Low-income housing. Many old people also from first generation moved in there in the 1970s. And therefore, even though the area is actually well maintained, so that's not really a sort of hotspot. If you look at the buildings, in social terms it is somehow, but it is somehow difficult to make interventions there in buildings on the energy systems, because you have, first of all, people who cannot afford paying rents that are that will increase, and on the other hand also people are somehow reluctant to see a lot of change in their environment because they have been living there for 30-40 years. We did this as a research consortium together with local partners, but also with other partners from Austria, and all three, the city of Salzburg and also the three housing associations were involved in this project. And we aimed very high at the beginning. We said we will look at how to achieve a zero carbon neighborhood there, how we can decarbonize the energy system of this existing area completely. The background of this was that the city of Salzburg has developed a so-called smart city master plan, which sets decarbonization as a topic, and this was conceived as a pilot project that could show how in existing areas that goal could be achieved. We realized very quickly that we had to be realistic, of course, but this was somehow the insight also that we gained. Existing conditions were in a way not so bad, so the area is connected to the district heating system already, which of course leads to a rather small, compared to other areas from that time, rather small carbon footprint, and also some energy efficiency measures for the buildings themselves were already carried out 15-20 years ago. So not at the standards we have now, but still they are somehow okay. Of course, we still have significant energy consumption there. And the question was how we can reduce that, and how also the potential for using the potential for renewable energies locally on site can be used. So this was basically assessed in 3 scenarios. So that was the very beginning of the project. So we developed first of all a so-called economically efficient scenario, which looked at measures that could be easily implemented. So this is mainly related to optimizing the existing energy systems of the building in terms of hydraulic pressure, in terms of the distribution networks, in terms also of using roof spaces for generation either of photovoltaic electricity or using it for solar thermal systems. We also looked at the high performance scenario, which include also additional measures for the energy efficiency, so bringing the buildings at the current level of standards, which is higher than the one that was used 15 years ago. And also in this scenario, there were some measures related to better, or more low carbon heat supply systems were included in terms of using heat pumps mainly, heat pumps coupled to the PV systems on the roofs. And the future performance scenario was actually the one that really would have led or would lead into decarbonization, into carbon neutrality. And this included also decoupling the area from the existing district heating network. In Salzburg, the district heating is comparatively dirty compared to, for example, to Vienna, where the footprint is really low. In Salzburg, we have a higher more CO2 emissions related to the district heating system. So replacing the district heating by another source of low carbon or even zero carbon energy would have a big impact. What we assessed was, for example, something like energy networks or wide-scale use of heat pumps, or also use of waste heat. However, we found out very quickly that this is really difficult to implement in the conditions we found there. It is very difficult to finance. So this future performance variant turned out at the very beginning of the project as that it would not be economically feasible. The other two, the high performance and the eco scenarios, we analyzed in more detail. Well, this just shows what we did. We, of course, we looked at the potential reduction in regarding the demand, and also the different variants of using local renewable energy sources. And we did not just do the calculation of the potentials and of the reductions, but also we did an in-depth economic feasibility study that included the way how the measures could be financed, bearing in mind that we have a very special situation there. So in social housing, the rent is basically fixed. You can change it. What you can change, there's something like you can ask the tenants to provide some, well, additional money for refurbishment, actually refurbishment activities or upgrading their flats. But this is also can only be done within very limited, so to say, conditions. And also this fee had already been raised in the past. So it was very difficult to argue that there's it can be raised again in the future. So what came out of it? That in the end, what is feasible in the short term, and also well, was supported by the local housing companies, is of course the use of the roofs for. In the end, we agreed on solar electricity. Also measures related to the increasing the efficiency of the existing energy systems. Heat pumps for supplying hot water might be an option. This is not clear. This is something that will be assessed more in detailed planning. And what also turned out to be very important is to see the whole development in the bigger context. Not just to look at the existing situation, but also imagine what else could be changed in the district in terms of, for example, there's a big parking space which is underused at the moment. So some variants included, how to say, additional construction on that site, which would also be, from an urbanistic point of view, actually more than acceptable. I do think it would improve the situation, because at the moment it's just a big parking space. But you could put the parking underneath, underground, and then this additional, how to say, floor space that you can create on the site would help also to finance the refurbishment of the area, and also lowering the economic footprint and the carbon footprint. So what came out of it was something like a concept for what we call an urban development fund, which would collect money from energy savings. Yeah, this is something, of course, a matter of organization, of contracting. Of some additional monies raised from this refurbishment fee, plus additional money coming from maybe from investment funding or from subsidies, plus potentially also money generated from densification. And that could, in fact, then be used also to achieve higher energy efficiency standards. And it also has somehow the advantage that if you start talking about not just about the energy system, but also about other changes in the area, you very quickly need to talk about the quality of the space, also the comfort of the flats in the area, and you need to talk to the local population and develop together with them a concept that then entails everything: the open space, the quality of the flats, the energy system. And this is something that is also easier to sell to the politicians and to the local population than just talking about energy savings and carbon reductions, even though that is of course very important. So what came out of the project was an integrated vision. We also developed a nice design for that, and we discussed it with the local stakeholders, with the vice mayor and with other stakeholders. And that is something that is, it's still an ongoing process, but we do think that we made really good progress in this project, and that we provided good decision-making material for the city of Salzburg. And what I also would like to mention here, another finding of this project was that, of course, decarbonizing the district heating system is, in terms of decarbonization and carbon neutrality, of course, somehow a game changer. This is something that we could not solve in the project. There were local discussions about especially using deep geothermal energy for the district heating system. That would, of course, completely change the picture. And this is something that was somehow out of the scope of the project, but we need to bear in mind, if you look at these existing areas, of course there are limitations in terms of what you can be funded, especially if you have low-income population. Therefore, we also need to look at the energy system, and especially the district heating system, and see how we can get the fossil fuel out of it. Well, so much about the project in Salzburg. Let me just mention that, of course, we also have in our organization also specific experts working on district heating. My background is not planning, I think you saw that in the presentation. And we also have experts working on solar thermal systems. So there's a lot of expertise for this in-house, and we will be very happy to share our experience, of course, with stakeholders and cities and energy companies here in Serbia, the region. and I'm very happy to answer your questions related to this presentation of the expertise. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Neumann. It is very obvious that in Austria you put a very high priority to strategy and to making scenarios before making decisions. So, but we also know that you finished a lot of projects afterwards. So it's very good for the Austria, for Vienna. So, are there any questions from the floor? Okay, everything was crystal clear. Thank you once again.